Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel. I'm Keith. If you've followed along for a while, you probably have met me, but I am a game designer for a living. That is what I do. And part of that, I do a lot of professional development to keep my skills sharp, learn a lot of what the other games are and what people are doing. Most recently in my conquest, I've been trying to master the Pokemon trading card game, and in doing so, Pokemon Pocket had been released in that time, and of course I wanted to go and check it out because it is an interesting look at a mobile focused adaptation of an existing card game. They've intentionally stripped some things out, changed some things up to try and make it more beginner friendly, maybe make it a bit more mobile gamer friendly. I talked about a whole bunch of the differences specifically between TCG and TCGP in a different video, so if you are more interested in the specifics of that, go and check that out. But this time around, I want to talk about three major problems in the game design that Pokemon Pocket has, and I think it might be an issue for the longevity of the game. But let's start off with the most obvious one. Misty is a problem. And not even in just a Misty is unbalanced or Misty is broken or whatever. What Misty has done to the resounding player feel of the game is a problem. Basically, in the Pokemon TCG, the way that the first player advantage is mitigated is that if you go first, you'll have an energy attachment advantage and you'll be able to evolve your Pokemon sooner, but you can't attack and you can't play a supporter. In Pocket, this has been changed where you cannot attach an energy on your first turn, but you can attack if you had the ability to pay for the cost in some way. So if you had something that cost nothing, which exists in TCG but does not in Pocket, you could do that immediately in theory. But you can play a support on the first turn, which kind of breaks the balancing first player advantage issue, where if you play Misty, you attach a whole bunch of energy, your water type Pokemon can attack before your opponent has a chance to set up. And the reason why this is bad, and the reason why the Pokemon trading card game doesn't let you attack on the first turn, is because when you start the game, if you only had one Pokemon in your hand, you play your one Pokemon, that's your opener, right? Then your opponent goes first, you've yet to play the game at all, they knock out your Pokemon. You've done no actions, you've not touched the game at all you've done is said, yes, this was the Pokemon I had in my opening hand, and you've lost the game. That is insane. If you imagine you're showing your mum or your grandma any game, right? And you go, cool, all right, here, I've got you set up. I've just taught you everything. You know how to play. You have all of your things. Bam, you've lost the game. I win. And they're like, what did I do wrong? You're like, nothing. That's how it is. They would never want to play again. It's a bad game design choice. The whole reason why this system exists in the Pokemon trading card game is to avoid this, to avoid you losing the game before you have an opportunity to even play. And look, it can still happen. Like, you could still just never draw any backup Pokemon or anything, but you had an opportunity to dig, you got an opportunity to play Professor's Research, look for them, maybe play a ball, find one. Not getting the opportunity to do that sucks. And I think that is a major problem. Like, regardless of whether Misty is good or not, they need to remove the ability for you to attack on the first turn. Because even if Misty attaches 25 energy to your Articuno on the first turn, that's still going to be there on the second turn. You're still going to have a gigantic advantage on me on your next turn, but I shouldn't be losing the game before getting an opportunity to do so. But the extra thing that Misty adds to the game that I think is a problem is the way that the players are playing with it. The first thing being, the person playing Misty goes, I play Misty, I flip tails, I concede. I see this a lot. They're like, yo, we're in the middle of the game, things have been happening, you have a small lead. They're like, I can't attack unless if I flip at least one heads on Misty. Uh-oh, it's tails. I'll lose. Okay, goodbye, concede. And it's like, well, I don't one-shot your guy. You're just one turn behind. So bad, I know. And then the opposite is people flip a bunch of heads and then the opponent concedes immediately. So having a card that just forces a concession from either player removes playing the game. What's the point? if it just removes you playing the game entirely, it just forces one player to concede, what's the point of it existing? And so I think that there's a few minor problems with this card in particular that needs to be changed. I'm not here to present solutions. Often I do, but the other advice that I normally give to other game designers is that it's on you to come up with the changes for things, because every single person's suggestions on how to change a problem is going to be colored by their specific experience or their specific preferences. For me, because I've been playing a bunch of the Pokemon TCG, my fixes to the problems are going to be rooted in more some of the fixes that they've had for similar problems, right? Rather than coming up with something new, I would be more likely to be biased towards my experience with the game and just be like, look, don't attack on the first turn. That will solve some of the problem. Maybe the problem is deeper than that and I can't see it from where I'm sitting and more needs to be done. Maybe they'll just do nothing and the meta will shift and people will realize that water is maybe really bad, and then other decks will become more popular and the problem won't be so prevalent. So that's interesting. But this leads on to my thing number 2, where the way that the gameplay is set up, because it is slower than the Pokemon TCG, because you run through less cards, you have less opportunity to draw cards and look at things, search the deck, then what happens is the resolution of the game can be seen too far in advance. You go, okay, I need to hit exactly these things right now or I lose. Or I need to have the thing to evolve my guy. I need to, in decks like Dragonite, it's like I need to get exactly this energy type and I didn't. I need to, hit potion, or I know that the attack back will kill me. Stuff like that. And you go, well, I'm in a scenario where I cannot win the game. I will concede. And that doesn't bring you to a natural, exciting climax of the game where you go, okay, I attack, I knocked out your guy, I scored the last point, I win, which is what the intended conclusion is, right? But when you're going through and you go, okay, I'm missing this one thing, GG, that's it. And your opponent's like, what happened? Because there's no chat. Like, I can't talk to the guy I'm playing with. I can't find out what the thing was that made me win the game. My opponent just gave up. And your opponent giving up is not a fun way to win a game. You want to be like, I made all the good choices and this happened, not my opponent gave up on the third turn because, I don't know, something was missing. Which is really rough. In other games, like Pokemon TCG and stuff like Magic the Gathering as well, has this thing where lethal is presented, or, like that final knockout is being threatened on you, and you go, okay, this is the list of obstacles of things that I need to overcome to either not lose the game or win the game. And you'll have a bunch of cards that will be like, search your deck for this, or look at the top X of this, or draw some of this. Like a Pheasantipity is a good example. My guy just got knocked out, I'm down some points. I get to draw 3 cards, which will help me recover. And because that is a hidden zone of information, instead of my guy being knocked out, I draw my 1 card for turn. I see everything. I see my entire list of actions. I go, there's no round, there's no way, there's no routes to victory. Good game. Which is really anticlimactic. Whereas compared to the Pokemon TCG, they go, I knock out your guy. I go, cool, I'm going to draw 3 cards with Pheasantipity. I drew a supporter, which lets me search my deck for, Irida, water type Pokemon, and an item. What is the item going to do to help me get out of this problem? Or I do something like Turo Scenario, where I can, take a guy off the field and remove all the damage from it so I don't give up prizes. These unknown zone cards give you the opportunity to find a solution to the problem, and only after trying to dig, trying to find something, playing something like Iona, drawing a bunch of cards, going through and seeing what the lines are, doing your best to find a solution, then you go, okay, I've got nothing, pass, and your opponent knocks you out or whatever. Or I reveal that I had the thing that wins me the game in my hand or whatever. Like, a lot of the time, the shortcut to the final is still more interesting because on that second last turn, something happened. Something was done. The turn isn't passed back to me, and I go, I have nothing, good game, back, concede. And it's kind of disappointing. Like, my main criticism of board games, and Coup in particular, Coup is a game where you accrue currency, and then you spend that currency to remove lives from other players, and the last person standing wins, basically. And what happens is, every single game, maybe 4 or 5 turns before the finale, you go, okay, this guy is going to be the first to hit this, the assassination threshold. He will choose one of these people to eliminate, which means that one of the other two people will win the game. And basically they guarantee the course of the game based on that one decision. And then when those two final people are remaining, then it's just whoever hits the number first to be able to do the thing. And it's kind of locked in. And when it gets to that point, you're like, well, why play it out if there's no other good actions? If anything else I do isn't going to generate me any additional value, or I can't really change anything, that's really anticlimactic. You're like, oh, it's solved, it's done, cool. I win, nice. But you didn't do the thing. You didn't go, oh, here, I drew this card that solves this problem. I drew this thing that causes a new problem for you have to overcome. Like a really common one in Pokemon TCG is using boss's orders to bring up one of their bench Pokemon that has a high retreat cost. And it's like, how do you get out of this? You have to actually get an attacker into the active to hit me back. And causing a problem that might disrupt their ability to win the game is sometimes just as good. And a lot of that not existing is, I think, a problem and will be an issue in the longevity of the game. And that brings me to my third point. The game is missing one card. And what that one card does is not specific, but they're missing one card. And that card is a consistency card. It is either searching for a Pokemon or something like Rare Candy. Rare Candy allows a basic Pokemon to evolve into a Stage 2 Pokemon, skipping the middle evolution. And I think that it just has to be released in the new set, or there's a big problem. And I think it is most obvious in decks like Mewtwo and Pikachu EX, because Pikachu EX takes 2 turns and starts attacking for 90. Mewtwo EX takes 2 turns and starts attacking for 50, and then either you have a Gardevoir really quick, or at 2 turns after that, it hits for 150 and is a guaranteed KO. So it's like 50, 100, that's a point, 150, that's 2 points, GG. I didn't have to play any other cards. I just attach energy to my guy, and as long as you don't kill him, I win the game. And Mewtwo and Pikachu less so is a good example, because like, here's just my card. I opened the game with it, I attached energy to it, and I attacked you. Pikachu at least needs Pokemon on the bench to increase its attack power. But the reason why stuff like Charizard isn't insanely prevalent, the reason why stuff like Greninja isn't played as often, like Greninja is an amazing support Pokemon, but because it's Stage 2 and there's so little interacting with your deck, it's so difficult to get a Stage 2 Pokemon happening. A lot of the very powerful decks at the moment are playing either strong basic Pokemon or Stage 1s. We had an event recently, I believe, that was won by an Arcanine deck. It was Moltres, Arcanine, Hypno, no Stage 2 Pokemon. Because it is very difficult to find something like the missing Stage 1, find your Stage 2, when the only times you can interact with your deck is drawing 2 cards or finding a basic Pokemon. When you can find a basic Pokemon, you can always find your basic EX attacker, and it's really hard to find something that is going to require an evolution. There's no Rare Candy to be like, well, look, I didn't find Frogadier, here's Greninja. There's no Evolution Incense is an example one from the trading card game, which just gets you a non-basic Pokemon. And you're like, great, if I'm setting up on the first turn, Incense is really bad because I can't find the basic. But later on, if I'm looking for my Charizard or whatever, Incense is perfect. And Rare Candy is kind of the same, right? It just means it's one less Pokemon that you needed to find. And I think having a supporter or an item do this thing. The original one that I thought was maybe the best choice was something like, I think, Timer Ball is when we flip 2 coins, and then based on each heads, you'll search for a deck for any Pokemon and put in your hand. I think that would be really strong. Finding a way to make it just slightly more consistent for non-basic Pokemon, because otherwise there's just too much of a barrier to playing them. And the big 3, Venusaur, Charizard, Blastoise, are really hard to play. You have to give up points by the time it takes for them to get into play. And then they have to sweep, because the chances of you making a second one is almost impossible. There's just no deck search for anything. You just have to hope they're on top when you drew them. And that makes things a little awkward. You're much more rewarded for playing basic and Stage 1 decks. I'm currently playing a Stage 1 deck. I'm playing Weezing, Arbok, and Hypno. because I'm just an asshole, I guess. They're really brutal together. Hypno putting something to sleep. Arbok meaning that it can't retreat means that they're not going to attack me, and I get to, you know, slowly punch into it over time. But it has problems where if I don't find my stage 1 Pokemon, I'm doing nothing. Coughing doesn't hit for that much damage, doesn't have that much HP. And so it's kind of a problem where I need to rely on my professor's research to draw the things, to find the guys that I need. And because it's only 20 cards and because it's only so few things, you can't have too many of these. If your deck is 6 Pokemon, so it's just like 2 stage 2 trees, and then like 2 more basic Pokemon or whatever, and then the rest is just item search, that's just going to find you exactly what you need. Your deck's going to be crazy consistent, and it's always going to have the thing and do the attack, and it's just all about, you know, when do I attach my energy or whatever. I don't think that is necessary. I think we just need to come closer to being able to set up a stage 2 Pokemon. So right now, basic EX is too strong, but that's just my thoughts. I've played a lot of this game. The recent event that just came out for battling, we had to win 50 matches, I just completed, playing mostly a basic deck. And going through and kind of getting the vibe, seeing how often people will concede at the latest inconvenience that you bring upon them, makes me think that these are some of the problems that the game needs to kind of address if it is going to have any kind of longevity. So if you've been enjoying Pocket like I have, and perhaps you have some solutions to these problems, some ideas, I do love checking out in the comments when people have solutions for stuff. You guys have been really good at suggesting changes to some of the Clock Tower characters that I work on and some of the board game content that I do. So maybe you have some good ideas for this. I would love to hear it. Get down in the comments section. And look, while you're there, click the like button, click the subscribe button. Every YouTuber has to say it. It's part of the contract. But hopefully I'll be seeing you around when we do some more Pokemon Pocket content on the channel.